viewers, hello and welcome to Sansad TV. I am Teena Jha, you're watching Perspective. India's fight was and will always be aimed at terrorists and terrorist infrastructure in Pakistan and not against the country's army. In a comprehensive press briefing, the Indian Armed Forces has informed citizens that India was forced to expand its response after Operation Sindoor as Pakistan's military chose to protect terrorist elements operating from its soil. Reassuring citizens that all of India's military bases are secured, fully operational and prepared to take on any threat against the country, the armed forces underline that India remains firm and uncompromising on its stance against terrorism. Any future act of terror will be considered an act of war against the country and will be responded to accordingly. To talk about this major shift in how the country plans to handle terrorism and how a ceasefire does not mean India climbing down on its fight against terror, I'm pleased to welcome on the program three distinguished guests. So let me begin by introducing them to you. We have with us former Ambassador Mr. Virendra Gupta. Ambassador, thank you very much for your time. Welcome to Sansad TV. Lieutenant General K.J. Singh, retired. He's a defense expert. General Singh, thank you for your time as well. Welcome to the program. And Air Vice Marshal P.K. Shrivastava, retired. Air Marshal, glad to have you with us on this broadcast as well. In fact, Air Marshal, if I could begin the program today with you, there's a reiteration from the Indian Armed Forces that even though there was a ceasefire and we planned to, de-escalate tensions at the border, we remain firm and uncompromising on our stand against terrorism. Your views first on how this messaging will be taken forward from here, what it means for a country like Pakistan, who's not just been harboring terrorism, but exporting it to India.
So, Teena, I must say and salute our armed forces for bringing home one point and very strongly that India is always for peace. But for peace, you need to show and exhibit your power structure, that you are strong enough to repel any attack on your soil, and also you're strong enough to attack as a paradigm shift wherever these terrorists are expected or are supposed to be hiding. Through this Operation Sindoor, few things have come on fore. The first and foremost thing that we know where are these terrorists. Not only we have the intelligence about them, operational intelligence about them, real-time intelligence about them, we can also attack them with precision without any collateral damage either to civilian structure or to military structure. This was the first message given, that we know where you are and we know that there is no boundary line for your being the safe haven. This was a very important message, and when Masood Azhar happened to say, Allah mujhe kyun nahi utha liya, these were the promised words which said that terrorists should have their own kind of pain, which will make them understand what pain they inflict on other masses, civilian, innocent people who are just leisuring in that valley, enjoying the meadow. So this is the first message. Second thing, it also came to the fore that Pakistani army is absolutely complicit. It came out on the global stage with terrorist organizations. There were whole lot of them were global terrorists over there. The structures, everything came in. During their funeral, it was something like a military funeral, where all the generals were standing with folded hands, and Chief of Army Staff put up his wreath over the coffin of a global terrorist. Very amazing. The deniability has gone for a 6 now for Pakistan. This has come out absolutely in the fore. Their understanding that if they have rear heartland, we have never struck the Punjab, which is the epicenter of all these troubles. The Punjab, all its airfields are within our reach. We can hit them at will. And their air defense structure, the weakness came into being. All their eyes in terms of radars, in terms of the UAV clusters in Buridike, all their Sargoda, which they are proud of, the hinterland, all kind of major stations, Rafiki, they're all, given a lesson. We still have not come down with full might of Indian Air Force or Indian Armed Forces. It was just a kind of beginning to show that yes, we can hit you and cripple you. Remember, Tina, they just have 16 major bases from where they can launch. And the one which was close to Rawalpindi, the general headquarters, was a message in itself. So, what we wanted to say through the exhibition of this kind of strength, and they tried all their might, drones, Fatah missile, everything they had, they launched at us, and we were able to deter, not only deter, kill, and take care of them.
Absolutely.
Our air defense,
You're
our
right.
air
Our
defense,
response has been
yes.
remarkable, and this time there has been evidence to back up the kind of befitting response that our Indian armed forces have given. General Singh, the fact that India has time and again reiterated that our fight is against terrorists, but each time Pakistan has ensured that it continues to not just back the terrorists but also shield the terrorists, something that it has done this time again. But what has changed is India has now adopted a new approach when it says that from now on, any act of terror will be treated as an act of war. How do you read that message? What does it mean for our military posturing?
Teena, Jha Hind.
Jai Hind, sir.
See, firstly, the thing is, there is a message that there will be a certainty of response. If you would mess with us, then be very sure that we will deliver a response, and response which will be beyond your imagination. So first thing is certainty of response. Because earlier we used to deter, we used to collect evidence, we used to make dossier, we used to create linkages, even go for joint investigation. So while forensics is important because we have to give evidence to organizations like FATF and other bodies, we have to get these terrorists listed and proscribed. But all the same, the certainty of response, and this response, actually, there was so much of angst in public because there was one school of thought that response should be delayed, because let these people keep getting psychologically dislocated, let there be costs in mobilization, in keeping the aircrafts on combat patrol and all this. But the angst behind was so much that government decided to deliver the response. That is one. The second thing is the response this time is a very potent kind of response, which is, if you see it in the geographical spread, it covers from north to south. All their bases are covered. If you see it in hierarchical terms, it covers their headquarters of Tanzim. Markaz-e-Taiba in Murid-ke, Markaz-e-Subhanallah in Bahawalpur for Jaish, and Mahmoon Joya for Hizbul right next to Sialkot. If you look at in terms of importance of cities where this response has been delivered, you've seen it. Bahawalpur, Murid-ke, Lahore, that's only 30 kilometers away. Sialkot, and beyond that, when Pakistan decided to do something silly and start targeting our military establishments, then our response has been delivered at Noor Khan Base, Malir Kent, right next to Karachi. So Pindi and Karachi are two biggest cities, nerve centers, and then bases like Sargodha, and we can go on. Rafiki, Jacobabad, all these have been addressed by us. So, in terms of, there would be a kind of, I know Pakistan is a very rational country. The large number of population has been radicalized, but all the same, there would be some sensible people asking questions. If you can't save yourself, why are you getting us enrolled for this cause? And we have also tried to remove that cover which used to be provided by calling them as terrorists or tanzeems or something, we have said that the government is responsible for it. If the government is not going to remove them, then we have the right to remove them. And we have exercised that right. That is indeed been done. And also in this process, we have also managed to further call off the bluff or bogey of nuclear threat which Pakistan gives so often. If you can go and hit a target in Lahore, in Murid Ke, in Pindi, and in all these important cities, Sialkot and all,
Right.
then what is left? Then all is addressed. Also, I would like to take this opportunity to salute our air defense warriors. While people on LOC have taken a very resolute stand, even the citizens who have stood up, who have shown resolve, but beyond that, our air defense warriors, they have not only degraded the multiple swarm attacks, but also showcased technology, indigenous.
Absolutely.
So
The nature
that's
of
a-
warfare has completely changed. We've had so many conflicts with Pakistan, but what we've seen this time around has completely, showed us how technology has sort of taken center stage, the drone and missile technology, especially in combat wars. But that is something that we'll perhaps discuss in due course of program. Ambassador, for a more diplomatic perspective and coming back to India's stance, that time and again we've told Pakistan that our response or the Operation Sindoor was never targeted at the Pakistani state or the Pakistani army. It was specifically targeted only at the terrorist infrastructure, the terrorist camps and the terror groups who for decades inflicted severe damage on India and its civilian population. And especially following the Pahalgam attack, India really wanted to hit these terrorists hard. The question now is, like always, Pakistan shielded the terrorists, forcing India to expand the response. But at the same time, the reassertion that from now onwards, there is a change in doctrine that each terrorist attack in future will be treated as an act of war. How do you see this playing out diplomatically, especially among countries who for decades and even now have put the onus on India to exercise restraint?
I think India's stand in overall terms and the restraint that we have shown has been very much appreciated by the international community. Our response has been robust, strong, and very effectively conveyed that we will not compromise at all with the terrorism. And I think we were able to very effectively convey that to Pakistan. It is unfortunate that the government, and I'm not surprised really that the government chose to shield and support, because that's what they've been doing all along for the last several decades. They have used terrorism as a matter of state policy. And, the world has chosen to look the other way. We've seen how duplicitous the international community can be. In the middle of all this, they were granted IMF loan. So I think we shouldn't be disheartened by that. We have to depend only on ourselves. We can't trust Pakistan. We can't trust the international community when it comes to the real crunch. We have to depend upon ourselves. And you mentioned, Teena, that the nature of warfare has changed, and I think that is very critical for us to understand that the whole we've seen in this limited engagement this time. The drones were used, missiles were used, and the defense warfare, the defense from the incoming missiles and drones, and there has been Pakistan has also unleashed a massive amount of information warfare, cyber warfare. So these are the issues that we'll have to deal with in future, and we have to restructure our priorities and align, I think, allocation of funds accordingly. So this is very important. Another point which is important to note is that it's been a huge diplomatic victory for us. Our position has been well appreciated, and Pakistan's support, traditionally Pakistan has been able to draw upon the support of most of the influential Muslim countries. This time it hasn't been the case, except for Turkey. No other country really has stood by the Pakistani side. In fact, our stand by major Muslim countries like Saudi Arabia and UAE, they have been more appreciative of the stand that we have taken. Our position is very clear. We have nothing against Pakistan. We are only taking action against the terrorists, and an initial strike, the precision strike that we undertook, was directed at the terrorist infrastructure. So I think that point has been very well appreciated and understood by the international community. We have achieved our objective. I know a lot of people are here from that we shouldn't have stopped at this moment. We should have gone the whole hog and tried to take away the POK or try to completely eliminate the terrorism. What we have to remember is that Pakistan in future also will continue to support and steer and coordinate the terrorist infrastructure for use against India. So I think this is a work in progress. We will have to keep our vigil up. We will have to keep our intelligence gathering apparatus very robust, and I think that needs to be strengthened substantially so that we have the real-time intelligence. We continue to update our information and take effective action against the terror infrastructure.
You're absolutely right, and it's perhaps this kind of preparation that has helped all our military bases. The armed forces did assure that all our military bases are secure and operational. It's because of that kind of preparedness that we had over the years. Air Marshal, I'll come back to you. There are two parts to my next question, and it builds on the discussion that we've had so far. So, on the reassurance that the Indian Armed Forces has given to the citizens of this country that all military bases of India are secured and operational, give us a sense of the kind of preparedness that goes into maintaining such a deterrent. And the second part is about Pakistan continuing to shield terrorists, and this is a recurring nightmare that India has to always be prepared for. So in that aspect, in a scenario where India is to treat all future acts of terror as an act of war against India, what role will air power play in both deterrence as well as quick response?
So Teena, I need to, through you, I need to tell our viewers that as far as rocketry or missile technology is concerned, India is like a superpower. And dovetail with that, the space intelligence which we have through our satellite networks. You'll be happy to note that for our BrahMos launch, we did not use the Western satellites or Russian satellites. We used our own satellite network, because that is very important. It also exhibited to the world that we have space assets in terms of our navigation, in terms of communication, in terms of radar intelligence, in terms of EW intelligence. So those are in place. This is not a very visible part of the spectrum. And the second thing, that we have our IW assets in place, because there were numerous cyber attacks on our installations, on our other things. They were repelled, which are not so visible, not in the media. And third, very important, that we could capture the electronic spectrum. That means our EW assets were in place. Now coming to the war fighting, the essential part of war fighting is, which the lesson has gone to Pakistan loud and clear, is that you should have accurate target information. That information is dynamic and real. It must have gone as a signal to China also, that yes, India has it. And to your satisfaction, let me mention, our net centricity for all the air defense operations is indigenous. Our net centricity is indigenous. This our viewers must know. In terms of Akash Tir, in terms of IACCS, we are able to have our indigenous weapon systems, which have hit sharp, loud, and precise, like BrahMos, like Akash, like so many other systems. So basically, when it comes to multi-tiered air defense system, which takes care of strategic, assets like all strategic, your ballistic missiles coming onto you, we have our own indigenous ballistic missile defense. Then it comes to second layer, which is called mid layer. and that one is 450 and beyond. This one will be nearly 150 to 450. Then we have 40 to 150, and then we have less than 40. For all these enclosed-in weapons, whether it comes to L-70 guns, Iker guns, or it comes to our manpads, we are self-sufficient. This is a very great message to nation that we must become more and more indigenous, because in times of war, you probably will not have the friends you thought they are your friends. And in times of war, if you're dependent on other countries, they'll have their own geopolitical play to do what Ambassador Gupta just now said. So being self-sufficient in our own tools of weapons and tools of waging our war and waging for a selection of the aim which we want to select. Our aim, the selection of aim this time for this kind of startup was only to destroy terrorist infrastructure, to hit their akas, to hit their headquarters. When they say markaz, markaz means the command, the center. We hit their center, and we knew that these centers are where jihadis are trained. They are trained in weapons, they are recruited, and there is a passing out parade which happens where generals of Pakistani army go and attend the passing out parade. So these are to be hit. The fear has to go into the heads and minds of terrorists that this is not a business they can do. And declaring that act of terrorism will be deemed as act of war in the continuum, and saying that Operation Sindoor it has paused, it has not stopped, it has not finished. Because as Ambassador Gupta rightly pointed out, terrorism is a business on a continuum for a country, rogue country like Pakistan. So we have to be ever vigilant, ever ready, and ever repellent. And let me tell you through your medium, Teena, we have that kind of air defense network that we can repel all their attacks. It is visible, they could not hit us. Therefore, the government has gone on to state that all our assets, military assets, are serviceable, available, and operational. Over to you, Teena.
General Singh, this is a significant moment in our national security doctrine. From now on, if we are to treat any act of terror, and which we, as all of you have rightly said, it's not going to stop. Pakistan will continue to not just harbor terrorists, but export these terrorists to our country. That's something that they've been doing for decades, and that is something that India needs to be prepared for. But what kind of messaging through Operation Sindoor and following this expanded response that you've seen from the Indian Armed Forces send out to these terrorist groups operating from Pakistani soil, at the same time the state machinery sponsoring and harboring them?
See, Teena, dealing with terrorism is a long-term process. It can't be, it's not a tap which you can switch it off, or an electric switch you can put it on, off. So in this journey, in this defining journey, there used to be time when our hinterland used to be attacked. There was attack on Parliament, there was attack in Mumbai, Akshardham Temple. So entire hinterland used to be in turmoil. They could hit wherever they wished to. So after what we did post Uri terrorist attack in terms of surgical raids, and post Pulwama in terms of Balakot airstrike, there has been a kind of deterrence where there has been no action in hinterland. There has been no action in hinterland. And the thing has got localized to Jammu and Kashmir. That is basically got shifted there. Now, the people who set this narrative, who set the strategy, who orchestrate the whole thing, firstly, they'll have to put distance between themselves and these tanzeems. I'm not giving a guarantee that terrorism will stop, because see, it's a very murky kind of a thing which is going on. LET, the markaz that we have destroyed, is called Jamaat-ud-Dawa. That is actually a charity that this LET has grown into a kind of a hydra-headed organization. And when you have earthquake in Pakistan or floods, they do charity work also. Similar is the case for Jaish-e-Mohammed. And there is this kind of deniability they build every time they have renamed the organizations operating here as the Resistance Front, PAFP, Popular Action, against fascism, PAFF. So, if that be so, there will be caution. I see that would be there. Internationally also, people will take notice of this, that you can't have this kind of terrorism spawning factories, mega organizations operating. So there will be a check to my way of thinking. And the fight against terrorism is not only in Pakistan. It has to be done within also. We have to do conflict resolution.
Absolutely.
We have already taken steps. Article 370 has been rescinded. We have removed Article 35 alpha. We have held elections. We have a government which is not double engine. Somebody can say that it's a completely big one, that freedom. We've not put a government that is following. There is a different government. So if that be so, there are steps which are happening. Tourism had got revived. The business was coming up. And that is which drove this entire thing. So through your channel, I'll appeal to all opinion makers. You have people from Kashmir who come and study in hinterland, who stay, who come for business, for selling shawls and all. Don't stereotype them. Don't victimize them, because they are not involved in this process.
Certainly.
And whoever is involved, NIA will take care of it. NIA is already in its job.
You have a very valid point, General Singh, and not just internally, I think, Ambassador, externally as well. When we talk about our fight against terrorism, we need to perhaps build a more cooperative structure in terms of getting more support from countries in this fight against terrorism, which is a global scourge. It has impacted not just India, but in recent years, we've seen how several countries have had their own struggles against terrorism. How should India now that we have a more clearer doctrine and a zero tolerance policy against terrorism, how should India be navigating on global forums, especially where Pakistan has a duplicity? It tries to play both. I mean, Pakistan has this habit of also playing the victim of terrorism, whereas the truth is that Pakistan for years has been shielding and harboring terrorists on its soil.
Well, we've been doing it, we've been at it for last several decades, trying to build up an international consensus against terrorism. We've been arguing that the world needs to act in concert against terrorism. But, countries have their funny ways. And as I said, duplicity is become a nature of international relations. The countries will tell you one thing on your face and do something else behind you, your back. So I think, we can continue to try and build an international consensus, but I think the results would be difficult to achieve. In my opinion, the only effective strategy is to build our own capacity to deal with terrorism. What happens every time we are affected, and it happens with predictable periodicity. Every 1 or 2, 3 years, whenever there is a little bit of peace going around, Pakistan tries to disturb it and sponsors a major terrorist activity. So I think we can blame Pakistan. I said on a channel that I was very shocked by what happened in Pahalgam, but I was not surprised one bit, because Pakistan has been doing this all along. So what we have to do is to focus on what we can do to safeguard our interests. And I think, as I said earlier, the only entity that we can trust is ourselves.
Absolutely.
We have to build up our intelligence gathering capacity. And I think, while the government may have done a lot in the last few years to strengthen our capacity, but it seems to me that a lot more needs to be done further. It can never be foolproof. We can develop more capacity. Fortunately, what has been shown is that we have considerable technological superiority, and all of that was brought to play in the current conflict. But we also need intelligence on the ground. So I think that and all of these activities need funds. So what I'm saying is that our intelligence gathering, our capacity for intelligence gathering has to be substantially upgraded. Externally, we can continue to call out Pakistan. Actually, we don't even need to, because the world, major countries already know about Pakistani game. And if they don't decide to call out, they do it because of their own geopolitical considerations.
I think absolutely rightly said, and I think something that has been reiterated by your fellow panelists as well, that we need to build and strengthen on our own capabilities. Perhaps India's clear messaging this time will begin to resonate with the international community. But I think in our own interests, what India has been doing in recent years is not just build your own capabilities, but strengthen them, modernize them to keep up with the multi-pronged challenges that we continue to face on different fronts. But with that, we'll have to also wrap up the program. Thank you once again to all three of you for joining us for such an insightful conversation. And to you viewers, time allows us to take up only that much on this edition of Perspective. Thank you very much for your time as well.
To watch more programs of Sansad TV, subscribe to our YouTube channel and don't forget to like and share them.